Hello. Well, what shall I feature in my YouTube video this week?
Special delivery.
Oh, thank you. I wonder what's in this. It seems to be a box full of camcorders. Let's have a dig around and see what's in here. Starting with Sony DCR-IP7E micromv camcorder. This seems to be much in a way the most popular model of micromv. Oh, complete with a cleaning tape. Comes in handy. It's nice to see it with all the original bits and pieces like this. So, high quality MPEG-2 video recording. Well, actually that was the biggest problem with it. MPEG-2 isn't ideal for editing. Network function built in. Yes, quite an unusual device having Bluetooth for this vintage. Digital camera function with supplied memory stick. I think it came in an extremely small Sony chewing gum type memory stick. Progressive shutter system and iLink, which was kind of like DV connector and DV semi-compatible, but not a DV signal. Register now. Do you think it's a bit late for that? So yes, what it's trying to say here is you can connect with analog connections. You can connect digital connections between micromv camcorders or indeed a computer, but not with such as hard disk recorders, digital 8. Doesn't seem to say miniDV. Oh yeah, well it says DV video cameras. Doesn't specifically mention miniDV. DVHS. Oh dear, anybody remember that? So 2001 vintage with some of the software. Well, that's a USB driver. That's really just for taking stills. The useful software is the Movie Shaker, which I did eventually get a copy of. Is that what's here? Movie Shaker, yes. Without that, you can't do much with it using a computer. Okay, well, we demonstrated that in a previous video. Networking, really hard to set up. It's a nice idea, but really complicated to set up. Bit fiddly, really. And in here, power supply. This power supply will work on miniDV camcorders as well. Oh, it's connected to the camcorder and it's open. So there's a clue that we have a fault. Tape in there. In here, various bits and bobs like remote control. That can be used with miniDV camcorders as well. They are probably the original batteries. Not sure that cable was ever used, so that's the DV type connector, firewire type connector, but of course it's been bent somewhat for use with micromv. This cable is also compatible with some other Sony equipment, but I've just noticed that the pin's missing from there. Let's have a look at that. No, they're just a bit blackened, strangely. The pins have gone black. But this gives you S-video and composite and audio out using this connector. And I think that might also be used on some of their mini DVD camcorders and certainly is used on some of their miniDV. USB cable, a thing for putting a battery in, I think. And looks like that was never used, a SCART adapter. So, right, let's see what happens if we power it up. That's lit up, clock set it says. And it's very unhappy. It's saying eject. Well, it is ejected. So presumably, no, it won't take the tape in. How about if I power it up when that's closed? It just doesn't feel right. I don't think that's going to work. It doesn't feel like it's fully closing. But I'll power it up with that closed in case it tricks it into accepting the tape. No. I suspect that is not going to be trivial to repair. It's also worth trying it with no tape, because sometimes you can get into a state where it won't take a tape in, but it will operate without a tape, and that gives you some information. Again, I'll try powering it up with that closed. No, it's not making any attempt to close this. Presumably jammed. The loading motor is actually accessible, it's just there. So it might be that, well, I might take this bit off, but it might be that I can at least get a feel for whether it's driving that motor, and if I drive it by hand a little bit, well, drive it with a low voltage, maybe I can find out if the mechanism's jammed, or if it's refusing to operate for some other reason, probably due to having been forced. So should we just very briefly try a little bit with that? I'll take these off and see if I get slightly better access to the top of the loading motor. You know, there's a reset here, and I'm just going to operate that. I'm sure it won't make a difference, but just give it a whirl. Pressing the reset button. No. Having undone all the screws I can see, so there's one there, two on this side, one on the bottom edge, two on this side. I still can't get this off because I think there's a screw going in from the inside, and I've seen this on the odd Sony machine before, and of course it's extremely hard to get to. It's almost impossible. Right, I think I've just about undone that screw that's on the inside there. Stupid place to put one. There we go. Now we can get that off just enough. Of course, it's got a cable because there are switches here. But maybe now I can get to the loading motor, which is there. Now, normally before I power a motor like this, I would disconnect the motor from the board, but I can't readily do that, so I'm just going to have to apply voltage gently. It will be somewhat protected against voltage on that, because of course when it switches the motor off there will be some back EMF from the motor, so the board should be somewhat protected against having voltages applied to it. It's going to be a bit fiddly, but I'll see if I can see what I'm doing with a microscope and apply a few volts. Probably say I'll try about 3 or 4 volts, current limited to 100 milliamps or something, and just see if there's any chance of getting this to move in or out. I won't know the polarity either. Right, so there's our motor. Connected it to the motor, and I'm getting no current draw at all. If I short these together, I go into overcurrent on my power supply. I've put 200 milliamps. But when I connect directly to the motor here, oh no, I'm in current draw. Right, I'm taking 200 milliamps and going nowhere. Okay, turn it the other way. Aha! Of course, it shouldn't be in that position now. I've got it closed but ejected, which is a no-no. But let's see if it will now eject. Okay, so it drove out okay and then got stuck, presumably. Let's see if I can drive it in, but I'm going to have to try and hold this closed at the same time. A lot of fingers needed at once. Even better if I put the tape in, I might be able to then get it to at least try to play a tape. I might tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stick this down with a bit of blue tack or something. Right. I've now got it laced and closed. Right. Let's see if it will attempt to work at this point. It's not happy. Power cycle it. It's actually attempting to play the tape, I think. Let's try fast forward. Play. Not sure there's anything on this tape. Okay, so the mechanism is trying to run. It appears to be just the eject side of it that's all messed up. There may or may not be anything on the tape. It may just need the heads cleaning. But if we now request the machine to do an eject, it may do that. That's all looking good. But if we try to get it to take the tape in again, I think it won't. Oh! That's looking a bit more promising. Alright, let's refit these screws. I'll power it down, refit the screws, and we'll try a tape with a known good recording on it. Right, I've not refitted the internal screw at the moment because that's just a blinking nuisance. But we'll come back to that later. So let's try a known good tape and see if we can get it to work. Okay, this tape has a recording on it. The last one was confirmed as blank. Detects it. I don't suppose this remote still works. Yes, it does. This batteries are probably 20 years old. And what do you know? Yes, we have a working micromv camcorder. So apparently it had just got jammed up. Let's refit that nuisance screw from the inside. Would you refit this one? I could make my life a bit easier by getting it to take the tape mechanism in. Right, now I've got better access. Slightly. Can you see? It's going in there. Really, really awkward. I will test this camcorder for a little while now. Well, that seems to be working very well. Let's just test eject a few times. I'll make sure it closes without the tape. It's all going very well. So that little micromv camcorder appears to be in good working order. Very pleased with that. Let's see what else was in the box. Right, this looks a bit older. Canon. Now I have a soft spot for Canon camcorders because my first camcorder was a Canon. one of the larger batteries, one remote control. Some Canon camcorders had a rather amazing viewfinder that would swing down as well as up, which is really good for overhead shots, but this is a simpler viewfinder. Yeah, this was a bit of a clunky way to provide power. You get the charger and then put this kind of dummy battery in the battery position. I always thought it was a little bit clunky. There's a button labelled refresh. I've never seen that before, so presumably this charger could do a sort of flatten and recharge on the battery to keep it in good order. Right, this won't work, I'm sure, but we'll give it a whirl. Something's just fallen out, a little black... What is that? Power it up. Well, the viewfinder's showing something. Actually, that looks like a nice image. So the CCD seems to be in good order, which is very often what does fail on these. So that's quite nice. Model UC200. Right. Okay. It's doing more than I expected. Press play. It appears to be playing. My goodness. Oh well, we're going to have to connect this up to the TV and see what we get. Found it. So it's only a low band camcorder, so no S-video connector, and only mono, so only one audio connector. So there's nothing to write home about. But yes, it seems to be playing quite well within the constraints of it being a low band camcorder. Press pause. So freeze frame is extremely basic on these things, but yeah, that works well. Let's try. I mentioned peep search the other day, which is peeping into the rewinding fast forward process whilst it's winding. Let's see if that works. Yes, it has peep search. That works remarkably well. Oh, go on then. I'm going to do a test recording on that. Sand and snow mode. I'm not sure we want that. Spotlight, portrait, sports, wide. The image straight from the pickup to the TV looks really very decent indeed. Not bad at all. Let's view that then. For such an old camcorder to be in such good working order is extremely unusual. The image straight from the pickup to the TV looks really very decent indeed. Not bad at all. Let's view that then. I like that a lot. Next. Next, a JVC GR-D820 miniDV camcorder. AV cables, a cleaning tape. Okay, rather obscure power connector. Quite a neat little camcorder this, actually. Firewire port, absolutely vital of course. This is a proper widescreen camcorder, I think. Oh, we'll have to get a tape for this. Okay, proper taping. Touchscreen? No. Where's the operation controls? Does it have a remote control? Presumably it did, but it's missing. Okay, this thing here controls it. It's clonking. Oh, that doesn't sound so good, does it? Oh dear. Can you hear it? One of these reel tables is split. Let's take a look at that under the microscope. What's that on the take-up spool? That's a crack right the way through it, isn't it? There. So of course each time the tooth which is engaging with that hits this crack, it's because it's an oversized tooth there. So it's clonking as it goes around there. Oh look, is that another one? 2 cracks on that take-up spool. So that would certainly make a noisy operation. Let's check the supply spool while we're here. Oh look. So it's not just Sony who can make reel tables that split because they shrink the plastic onto a metal, or form the plastic onto a metal surround, and then over time the plastic starts to shrink and the metal doesn't, and it breaks up like that. And we've got a second break on that one too. In fact, that looks the worst of the lot. So both reel tables have cracks in them, and I would hazard a guess that every single one of these machines has probably got that problem. So you'd never be able to get replacement parts from another one. They're all going to be just the same. Shame, because that's actually quite a nice camcorder. Well, I hope you've enjoyed us looking at these 3 interesting camcorders. I'll do plenty more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now.